Hello my fellow comrades, it is SoldierDude Gaming here, and welcome back to another Arma 3 Antistasi video. So, sorry if my voice sounds a bit like Steve-O, but I got some allergies going on and it's kind of screwing with my voice box. So, excuse me if I do sound a little bit odd, but I'll continue with the video anyway. So today I bring you yet another compilation of some tips and tricks that I've learned with Antistasi, and well, just a few ideas and strategies that could help you guys in your campaigns and make it a bit more fun and also just a bit, I guess, easier in a way. So kick back, relax, grab some popcorn and maybe a notepad, because here we go. So, first thing we're going to talk about is the different kinds of enemy military areas you can encounter while playing Antistasi. So in total, there is about 7 different military areas you can encounter while playing in your Antistasi game, or at least if you're playing on a newer version such as Antistasi Ultimate or Antistasi Plus. So these military areas are military administrations, resource bases, factories, outposts, seaports, military bases, and air bases. Each one is unique, serving a different purpose for the enemy's military, and can grant you certain boosts or get you certain weapons and gear depending on what kind of location it is. So, starting off with the basics, we have military administrations. Military administrations are pretty much barracks or like police stations that have been taken over by the military and are basically being used as a point where they put a officer in charge of the area to oversee military operations, and well, they usually have a few soldiers or police officers protecting him, so you could still pretty much try to take out the officer, but you will encounter a bit of resistance. Usually killing these military administrations gives you access to a bit of weapons, and there's even a small arsenal box that'll give you some decent starting weapons and some other gear, and as well you can also loot the enemy soldiers that you killed, and well, they're actually kind of more rare than most of the other military areas. Usually only a few of them being on the map, well, depending on which one you're on. But they're very rare, and, well, they're pretty decent targets for when you're just starting out as a new player or a new campaign. So be sure to keep those in mind next time you start up a new Antistasi. Next we have on the list are resource bases. These can be very vital targets for both a player that's deep into their campaign or one that's just starting out. Resource bases are also one of the least defended bases that you can encounter in Antistasi. Usually about maybe 1 or 2 squads you can kind of see patrolling the area, as well as, well, 2-man patrols that are around the actual base itself guarding it. And you could usually find some sort of transport truck or a logistics truck parked up in these bases, which is another reason why you can attack them, is they could provide some form of resupply vehicle. But the main purpose of these resource bases is to supply the occupiers or whoever captures the base with money and resources for them to expand their army. So, pretty decent target for starting out, but also a very crucial base that'll give you money and resources later on. So, do keep it in mind. The next on the list, and it's kind of some of the resource bases, are factories. Factories will also give you a little bit of money after you capture them, and they also, you know, they're kind of a little bit more under-defended than some other bases, and again, you can also find logistics trucks there, so they're also a good target in case you want to get some field trucks or engineering trucks or anything like that. But instead of mainly giving you money, the factories will instead give you access to build certain fortifications and other defensive structures. Factories are also an easier target, however, they, you know, don't give you as much money. So, just keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the more fortified of the military areas, we are now moving on to the outposts. Outposts are the most common types of military areas you will find all around the map. You can usually encounter anywhere from maybe 30 to 40 enemies here sometimes, and they're usually very well protected when it comes to static weapons. Everything from mounted machine guns to anti-air emplacements and even anti-tank missile launchers that you can find. So do proceed caution and maybe do a bit of recon before you attack these areas. However, the good thing about attacking outposts, and as well as the next few bases that I'll talk about, is that these bases will contain things such as arsenal boxes. which are little ammunition and gun crates that the military will use to store some of their own guns, or perhaps even like confiscated guns that they took off of like civilians or other enemies and stuff. So be sure to take these and, secure them, get it back to base as soon as you take over these bases. Do a bit of recon, check out where the static weapons are, how many soldiers are there, and try to plan out a strategy to attack these places. And, well, maybe sometimes you might need armored support. Moving on to the next one, which is seaports. Very similar to how outposts behave. However, the main difference is, well, they're kind of naval-oriented. So seaports are pretty similar in the fact that they have usually the same amount of defenses and soldiers guarding there. However, you can also expect to encounter patrol boats and other armed naval vessels that are in the harbor or near the docks, storing ammunition crates and arsenal boxes, which can also contain diving equipment, which could come in handy for perhaps some special forces operations that you want to carry out with your rebel forces. But very similar to how outposts behave, same defenses, same amount of soldiers guarding, same sort of purpose, but naval-oriented, so nothing too extraordinary on that front. Moving on to the bigger bases you can encounter, and some of them are well defended, we go to military bases. These are arguably the most well-defended bases you can encounter in the entire scenario. Heavily defended, with even armored support most of the time, and a lot of static weaponry, and even surface-to-air missile systems that are backed up by a radar dish. So, it's safe to say these are by far some of the most scariest places to attack for a Antistasi player, especially one that's kind of new. Most of the time, they're usually backed up by a couple of mortars in the base, too, that will take out anyone that gets within a kilometer of the base. So it's highly recommended that you bring armored support, or perhaps artillery strike the military base with any captured artillery pieces, or come up with some other strategy. And, well, an air attack is out of the question due to them having surface-to-air missile systems and other manually guided weapons in the base. But the good news is, you can usually find unoccupied armored vehicles here, such as armored personnel carriers and tanks. So if you're able to capture the place and have those intact, you will. So, very big base, however, pretty big reward if you're able to capture it. And last, but definitely not least, we have the air bases. Basically the main area of operations that the military will occupy on the map, and are usually the ones sending out attacks and air support, such as helicopters and airstrikes via, jets and stuff like that. But yeah, they are very, very well defended. However, arguably maybe a slightly less occupied than, how many will be at a military base. However, still quite a lot of soldiers, in my opinion. A lot of static weapons, including surface-to-air missile systems, anti-tank missiles, probably. You can also probably expect to encounter armored vehicles and other big threats there. So, yeah, definitely going to need to bring more armor to take over these bases. However, they're definitely the more bigger places you need to hold if you want to win the game. And if you capture these places, you can then use your own aircraft and spawn them in and customize them and, try to reign over air superiority over the enemy. So, definitely a big, big target you want to attack and hold. So, yeah, that's all the military areas. Now we move on to the different tiers of enemy units, which is what I'm kind of looking forward to. So, there's about 5 different tiers of enemies you will encounter in your Antistasi game. So, I'm going to be using the 3CB Altus Armed Forces faction to sort of display the different types of enemies you can encounter and, what they're all about, what kind of weapons they have, where you can find them, and stuff like that. So, first off, we have the most, ordinary of the enemy forces you'll find, which are the police. These guys you can usually see patrolling areas such as towns and cities, and can also be served as convoy escorts during, convoy missions, and also just standard enemy patrols you can find. They're usually armed with little to no ballistic protection, but sometimes light bulletproof vests. and they're usually seen using pistols, submachine guns, shotguns, and maybe some rifles. Not too well skilled, but also not too well armed. They're decent targets if you want to try to get like a decent gun fast, but they're usually seen protecting towns, cities, military administrations, convoys, and other small areas such as that. Next, we have what I call the reserve forces. So, the reserve forces are some of the actual military that you can encounter usually at the very start of the game, and you can kind of see them throughout the playthrough of your game. So, the reserve forces are pretty much the last line of defense, or like the conscript forces, or stuff like that. Not very well equipped, but decent enough where they can win a firefight if there's enough of them and they, have some decent strategies. You'll encounter them during the first sort of ward levels in the game, and, well, they're pretty much anywhere where the military is. Military administrations, convoys, outposts, resource bases, patrolling outside of bases, responding to attacks, being part of quick response forces. They're pretty much freaking everywhere. And you can usually find some decent weapons on them, which they're nothing too special. However, it's a lot better than the standard bolt-action rifles and World War II era equipment you'll start off with at the beginning of the game. Depending on what kind of faction you'll have, you'll probably just get some old bare-bone rifles from like the Cold War era or other weapons like that. But so, it's decent enough so you can, get a bit of a foothold. Now we move on to what I call the regulars. The regular forces are, well, the regular enemy infantry you will encounter in your playthrough. They're a lot more well equipped and trained than, well, your standard reserve forces dude or conscript, and they usually have some of the more standard equipment that the enemy faction will have to offer. So they'll usually be wearing like their faction standard uniform, decent rifles with some attachments and stuff like that, higher grade weaponry, and, well, all around better skilled and better equipped. And, well, they're usually seen, even at lower ward levels, participating in stuff like enemy attacks whenever they call in, like, perhaps paratroopers or stuff like that. So, do be careful whenever you see these guys, as they will have some pretty decent weaponry, and they can kick your butt if you're not careful enough. So now the next class that I was going to talk about, which I was kind of debating if I should talk about, is a faction that may or may not exist, but I swear I've encountered them before in Antistasi, which I'm just going to call them the Elites. They boast heavier armor, different weapons, a little bit more well-trained, and just all around a bit better than the regular forces. But yeah, do be careful whenever you're encountering them, since they are a little bit more well-trained and will have better weaponry and protection. So, be on the lookout for these guys. And lastly, we have some of the more rare soldiers you will find, and perhaps the most dangerous, which of course, are the Special Forces teams. The Special Forces are pretty self-explanatory. They're Special Forces that are highly trained than any other soldier in their army, and are usually seen using, well, the best weapons they have to offer, the best bulletproof, armor and stuff like that. They're also seen using suppressors on their weapons, so if you get in a firefight with them from longer distances, you might not even know where you're being shot from. Most notably, these guys will be seen loading into helicopters and heading towards the location of your headquarters if the enemy knows about the location of, well, your commander. So, usually whenever you get the mission to defend Petros, which is your commander, they will send out Special Forces teams via helicopters. So, you only have a few minutes to defend and get either Petros out of there or into a safe spot before the military Special Forces arrive to kill him. And so yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown on the different tiers of enemy units. So now that we've talked about the enemy itself, let's see how we can hurt them a little bit. So, how do you get better weapons in this game? There's at least a couple of ways. First off is the obvious, which is, well, you steal weapons from, enemy soldiers and, well, any enemies you come across or stuff like that, which can give you some decent starting weapons and stuff like that, which can help you, take over more military areas, complete more tasks, and do more missions and stuff like that. You can also buy weapons from the arms dealer once you find him, but you gotta have the right amount of money, and usually it's very expensive. However, if you do have the money, and maybe some weapons that you already have in your base, you can probably unlock some weapons that you can get from the arms dealer, and that'll benefit your revolution. However, there's another way on how you can get some weapons that'll, you know, kind of be a bit harder, however, a bit more rewarding. And that is stealing arsenal boxes and ammunition trucks. And, well, these boxes and trucks are usually stockpiled to the brim with all sorts of weapons and gear you can unlock, and, well, you can actually tune the settings of what kind of stuff spawns in these boxes in the Antistasi settings when you load up the game. But anyway, you can find all sorts of guns and anything you can pretty much find in these boxes. Guns, gear, ammunition, body armor, and stuff like that. Explosives, backpacks, pretty much anything. So, if you're able to attack an outpost, be sure to try to look around for an ammunition or arsenal box, since, well, that's pretty much where you're going to find the most of the weapons that you will, find most useful in your Antistasi playthrough. So, be sure to look around for these boxes, and also try to get ammunition trucks, since they can, well, resupply your vehicles and stuff like that, which I talked about in an earlier video. But yeah, they are usually stockpiled with even more weapons, since, well, it's a truck and not just one little crate. So, you can usually find these, sometimes driving by themselves, like out in the middle of nowhere, but sometimes in some missions, like in stealing an ammo truck mission, or a ammunition convoy. So, at the very start of the game, I would highly prioritize trying to get one of these trucks, or just trying to get a lot of those arsenal boxes. So, yeah, that's how you get a lot of weapons pretty fast. And so, the last topic I'll talk about today is how to get armored vehicles. I'm not just talking about like some sort of up-armored Jeep or a Toyota Hilux with metal panels strapped onto the side like it's some sort of Middle Eastern contraption, but actual armored vehicles such as armored personnel carriers and tanks. So there's alongside with, trying to get actual ammunition crates and arsenal boxes, there's also a few ways how you can obtain armored vehicles. First way is saving up money and buying some from the arms dealer, which can kind of be a little annoying because sometimes he might not have exactly what you would imagine he would have, but the most common way how you're going to get armored vehicles is stealing from the military. Usually the best way to take these things out, or to try to capture them, is this whole strategy. Try to aim for the tracks with any sort of anti-tank weapon you have, whether it be a rocket launcher or some sort of other anti-tank launcher you have available. So yeah, aim for the tracks, or even perhaps the engine on the vehicle. Once the vehicle is tracked, it's immobile and it can't really move anywhere. Maybe you can even target the fuel tank, which helps too. But once it's immobile, basically wait for the crew to not have a visual on any soldiers anymore and for them to calm down. And then try to move a demolition team in, or something like that, and try to get around the back of the tank, where it's not looking at you, and try to bring explosive charges so you can, quote-unquote, breach the vehicle. Basically, whatever you do is, whenever you breach the vehicle, you basically force the enemy crewman to jump out of the tank, after you breach through the hatches of the vehicle. So, once you're actually through, you can actually just have a tank all yourself now, or whatever armored vehicle. So, yeah, pretty much all you have to do is just try to disable the vehicle's movement, either by killing the engine, disabling the tracks, or draining the fuel tank by, well, targeting the fuel tank. And then once that's done, get a demolition team to move in with explosives, breach the vehicle, and, well, capture and, do whatever you want with a tank crewman. And then, voila, you have an armored vehicle. All you gotta do is just repair it, get it back to your headquarters, do some repairs, maybe get some more ammo, maybe slap a nice little camouflage on it if you want, and then boom, armored vehicle. And so yeah, I think that's gonna be the end of this edition of Antistasi Tips and Tricks. So, if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel so that you can support me, and, well, try to get the platoon. It's a bit larger than platoon now, but try to get the the channel a bit bigger, and well, hit the notification bell so you know whenever a new video is going to drop. And well, if you're at all interested in wanting to know, I guess, more about my upload schedule or just maybe hang out or stuff like that, I have a link to my Discord in the description of the video and all the videos that I make now. So be sure to join the Discord if you want to, and I'll try to make a bit more videos now because I've just been kind of burnt out at the moment, just like trying to do some other things to keep me happy and do stuff like that. But I'm hoping to return and actually get back into making more content. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, yeah, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscription bell, and turn on notifications so you know whenever I upload. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, bye. I'll trip into one. Oh my god. Oh my god, my nose. Now moving on to some of the bigger bases that you can encounter, and some of them were well defended. We have military bases, which are arguably some of the... What the heck?